Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. ASU finishes its regular season and kind of postseason play. We'll get into that in just a second in men's basketball after a loss to Kansas State yesterday. But it's what happened before the game that really got people's attention. Our own John Gambadoro is reporting that Bobby Hurley is going to be sticking around for the 2025-26 season. Easy for me to say. But that was reported right before the game. A lot of people confirmed that report. So it seems like Bobby Hurley's sticking around for another year, Damon.
Yeah, even this morning, John Rothstein reporting that Graham Rossini, the athletic director, is telling him directly Bobby Hurley will be back next season. And so I think at this point we're very clear about what the situation is. And Bobby coming back for what will be his final season under contract. And, part of the reporting from Gambo is that Bobby is obviously seeking an extension still, even though there's that 1 year left on it. But it sounds like he's not going to get that. So that's kind of the situation we're going into there.
So Bobby not going anywhere. And there's a few reasons that we can kind of pinpoint as to why this is happening. Number one, in our opinion, and from what others are reporting, is the money situation. It seems like the buyout would be pretty large, and that could possibly take money away from other sports within the athletic department that ASU wants to invest into. Number two, recruiting aspects. Obviously, they have a very good freshman class this past year with Joe Sansanin, Amir Ali, Jaden Quaintance, and obviously Trevor Best, who came in midseason. And then you got other guys that ASU seems to be going after, and chief among them is Koa Pete. So if those guys, I don't know this to be true, but if those guys said, hey, we want Bobby Hurley to stay, if we're going to stay, then that kind of makes sense for Bobby Hurley to be coaching ASU going into next season.
Yeah, I think the sense that we're getting is that at least 3 or 4 of these freshmen are going to stick around. Maybe Sannon is the one you feel least confident about.
Yeah, maybe he tests the draft, tests the waters there, goes to the combine. And if he doesn't like it, he comes back or ends up transferring. Who knows, right? But yeah, to your point, that's the one that we're not very sure about.
And with Koa Pete in this 2025 class, ASU already has a couple 2025 commits. Leo Curtis, a 7'1" guy from Iceland who actually came over to the States to play high school ball this season. And then Cash Polk, another guy for front court depth. He's a little bit of a lower tiered recruit, but still 6'8" and was productive in high school. He would obviously provide a little bit more of the depth that this team was really lacking, as Bobby mentioned in last night's presser.
Not the season they were looking to have, obviously. 13-19 finishing 13-19 after last night's game. But there's some rumors and some reports saying that ASU is going to play in this postseason tournament, the new Crown tournament that is happening. Damon, what do you know about this tournament? I know a lot of people were like, what the heck is this? We've known about it for quite a while, but I'm not sure how it really works. Can you kind of explain it a little bit?
Yeah, so it is put on by Fox mostly in conjunction with MGM and obviously some other corporate sponsorships to make it so that NIL is on the line in this tournament for the players. It's obviously going to be a big reason why, you look at a situation like this. Why would ASU want to continue playing? Well, there's your reason right there.
They have 7 healthy scholarship players, 6 if Adam Miller's not able to go.
And you'd imagine that with the time, because I'm going to mention right now, it starts March 31st. So that's almost 3 weeks from the end of ASU's season to then. Obviously a chance for maybe Quaintance to get healthy, maybe Adam Miller to get closer to 100% rather than the 3 things it sounded like he was dealing with there at the end of the tournament.
Poor guy.
Yeah, what a job by him throughout the season to battle through as much adversity as him.
He really kept them in the game in the first half, making those 2 straight 3-pointers and really sparked the run that they went on at the beginning of the first half.
Yeah, so for him and Alston Mason and guys like that, the seasons that they had, just putting their all on the line, I think that needs to be commended. At the end of this season, obviously it was well below what we were hoping for and what I'm sure they were hoping for, but some of these guys really do deserve a lot of credit for how the season went. And I think Adam Miller is a guy that it's been talked about. He might have a 6th year of availability if he, because he started back in the COVID times and all that. We'll see if he wants to use that or wants to seek it. But yeah, back to the college basketball crown. So the way it works is there the three conferences most closely tied to Fox are the Big East, the Big Ten, and the Big 12. Two teams from each of those will get auto bids, and then there are 10 at-large bids aside from those 6.
Sure.
So it sounds like, just looking at the standings and the way that I would project things out, I think ASU is getting one of these 8th or 9th at-large bids just based on how they finished in the standings. It's going to be hard to, tell what they're going to be up against just because, we have so little idea right now. A lot more is going to be known when it comes, but obviously it'll be happening in Las Vegas, all games on Fox and FS1, and the NIL on the line. NBA scouts will be involved as well, so lots of reasons for the players to be interested, I think.
Yeah, and the reason we don't know yet is because obviously all these conference tournaments are happening right now. And
we'll know a lot more after Selection Sunday. And
you
everything.
have the different conferences. Like, I know, bad example because they're not involved with Fox, but the SEC has 13 teams possibly that's going to make it to the NCAA tournament.
Might set a record.
So that doesn't leave a lot of room to fill out the rest of the tournaments, whether it be the NIT or the Crown, as well as, obviously the Big 12 has been insane this year. So we'll see if there's 7, 8 teams that may make it to the NCAA tournament in that conference as well, and that only leaves a select few teams that can fill out the NIT and the Crown, correct?
I think right now a lot of bracketologies have the Big 12 at 8 teams, with the line kind of being if you're 500 or above, you're in, which, knowing that for the conference that ASU is going to be in for the foreseeable future, I think if you can have 500 in conference as the standard for you getting into the tournament, it's a pretty good situation for ASU to be in. It certainly wasn't the case with Pac-12.
Yeah, and getting back to Bobby Hurley, and who knows how the season is going to finish in terms of what their record is going to be. Obviously, 13-19 post loss to Kansas State yesterday. It hasn't been great the past few seasons for Bobby Hurley's teams. Never made it past the second round of the NCAA tournament so far in his ASU tenure. A lot of people thought it was time for ASU to move on from Bobby, but I think at the least for what they have right now and all the outside factors that we mentioned at the beginning of the pod, for them to move on from him at this point, I think would be not beneficial for the school. Not only, obviously football is doing incredibly well right now. I think it would be unfortunate to have a team that is continuing on the rise, and then an ASU basketball team, men's basketball team, as well as the women's basketball team, which we'll get to in a second, that is going on a coaching search. I like what ASU did with the football team, going for a guy that's an alum and has the attitude of, this is the place where I want to be. And, we can possibly see that with the women's basketball team. But I don't know if there's a person of that ilk that we can see for the men's team if they wanted to go down that road for men's basketball.
Yeah, I think this is maybe behind the money. The biggest next piece to it is who would replace Bobby. And I just don't think there are great candidates that you can bank yourselves on. Obviously, there are the few and far between, a couple SEC coaches that were mentioned that, you don't know that an SEC coach is going to want to leave his job when obviously the SEC is what it is right now for basketball. That's a tough part of it. But also just, I want to talk about the things that we want to see from Bobby Hurley in this potentially last season and, getting there as well.
Definitely the last season. Definitely the last season of his contract.
Right.
We'll see if it is his last season with ASU.
So one thing I wanted to talk about is just behind freshman retention of this team, obviously being the top priority, what is the next thing that you want to see? Because I think for me, it's just building a roster that has the right goals, the right priorities. Kenny Dillingham always talked about how the players lead the culture, and, it's been 3 straight seasons of an in-season departure for ASU basketball. And I think that the number one priority, if he wants to turn this final season of this contract into a new contract here, I think it starts with just implementing the right kind of culture all around him. And I think Koa Pete, obviously it's going to be a huge ask to get him, but he is the exact kind of guy that could come in and really solidify a winning type of culture. I don't know that I've seen many players up close who exert the kind of effort needed to just win no matter the cost as Koa does.
I mean, especially what he just went through.
Right. What he did this past week or two, coming back from a fractured hand to literally like the week after it happens, he's still dominating games in the open division bracket and leading Perry to his 4th straight title. And I think that just can't go understated, or it can't go overstated. And just like, it's not easy to win open brackets in Arizona. There are generally like 5-star players at public schools in Arizona every year. Koa Pete went against one of them in the final, Darius Wabbington at Sunny Slope. And, it was just the typical title game of, Perry and Koa Pete beats people. And that's the kind of culture you want to bring into ASU, is just we are going to do whatever it takes to win, even a fractured hand. That's a lot of the same type of stuff Adam Miller was doing this year.
Yeah, and something that you can say about Bobby Hurley's time that's a positive so far in his tenure here at ASU has been his recruiting. I mean, he's done a great job. He's gotten some of the best recruits in ASU history to come to the school, and that is with what we know as a below-average facility that he's dealing with. So I understand it from that aspect, and keeping him around and trying.
And the players like playing for him. As recently as a couple weeks ago, Amir Ali was talking about, it's been everything I was hoping for. He's been great to play for, and I would want to keep doing it. So I think makes sense.
But to go along with what you were saying about the recruiting aspect, Bobby Hurley took it upon himself to say yesterday after the game that it was his fault to not build the roster. I'm paraphrasing here, but not to build the roster well to withstand the type of injuries that they had. They were very low in depth at the center position. They, obviously Jihad was playing center at points this season. I mean, toward the end of the season, he was almost exclusively playing the center position when Sean Phillips was not on the floor.
Which felt like a nice tweak that you could throw in here and there, as a small ball 5, but not something you want to bank on.
So it's the bigs, and it was the guard position that, obviously would have been better if, they didn't lose a few players to injury, and if Trevor Best started to come on a little bit earlier in the season rather than later in the season, it would have been easier. But he's young. He's 17 years old.
Right.
It's
Should
difficult.
be in high school right now.
So I understand it. But in this scenario that we think about it, if ASU is going to, go into this offseason, that's something that they have to look into. They have to look into making sure that they have the depth on this team to ensure that they can withstand the injuries that they saw this season.
Right. It was something that he talked about. You need to be able to project ahead for those kinds of things, and they just weren't able to. And so I want to quickly, before we move on to women's basketball, mention the numbers going into this. ASU is still paying Herm Edwards and Ray Anderson through next school year, which factors into this. They will still be paying Natasha Adair next year. They will be planning for that potentially upwards of $100 million renovation to Desert Financial Arena. There's so much money that they have to worry about right now.
They're going to have to pay a new women's basketball coach as well.
And the football coaches are getting more because of Dillingham's extension and the coordinators' extensions that they got. And, that money that's going to the football program is likely where the money would have come to pay for Hurley's buyout. And so I think you run the risk of maybe not being able to repeat as Big 12 champions in football, and the value that being successful in football brings versus the difference between bottom feeding and mediocrity in men's basketball, that type of difference. It just, from a pragmatic standpoint, it made the most sense to just take this route, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll move on to women's basketball now. Natasha Adair not returning as head coach of the women's team next season. Obviously, I think it was 29-60-something was her final record at the school. I think she'll do a great job if she finds another job like the Delaware one that she had previously to this one. It just wasn't the right fit here at ASU. And, I had nothing but good interactions with her, and she was
incredible person.
She pays attention to all ASU sports, which was awesome. Just wasn't the right fit, like I said.
And another instance of credit where it's due, they were able to win a game in the Big 12 tournament and surprise a lot of us and really hang with Iowa State in their next game as well. It was only a single-digit loss.
Yeah, it just, there wasn't enough growth year over year. And now that women's team is in another coaching search, the second one now since Charlie Turner-Thorne left the program. And the names that we're hearing kind of intrigue me. I know the Molly Millers of the world have been a name that has been floated out there. She's GCU's head women's basketball coach at the moment, and they're looking to make it to the NCAA tournament for the first time, I believe.
Yeah, I think it would be the first.
Yeah, they only have 3 losses or something this season. Two.
29-2 and 16-0 in conference.
So they're doing a great job. But the names that I'm most intrigued about are names that came up last coaching search. Nikki Blue, who I think was one of the finalists for this job last time around, and Breon January. I would love to see Breon January take over this role. I think having a player who's a legend at the program.
2 Elite Eights. Her jersey's in the rafters. Right.
And she was a very solid women's basketball player in the W.
14 years, got Indiana Fever's only ring to her name. So.
Yeah, so I would love to have that type of pedigree and experience at a head coaching position. I think it goes with the theme that the football program is going with, which is having someone that, really loves the school, went to the school. And
in the same way that Graham Rossini
yes,
talks about the love for the program and wanting the program to succeed.
So she would be my number one option. And with her ability to, she played for Charlie Turner Thorne, to bring her voice back to the school possibly would be beneficial. That's the golden years of this program. So if Breon January could have the ear of Charlie Turner Thorne, I think it would be so beneficial for this program. And to have her around practice again, I think that would be the right trajectory to take it.
One thing you were mentioning, I can't remember if this was about Breanne or Nikki Blue. Who was it that had Charlie Turner Thorne's blessing when in that coaching search?
I think it was Nikki Blue.
Nikki Blue?
Yeah. And then she got the interim job with the Mercury.
That's right.
And then Charlie came on as an assistant there. So that could be something as well that they look at.
And we should talk about, too, where they're at right now. January is currently on, funny enough, it's an ASU staff over at the Motor City Cruise. Jamel McMillan, who was the point guard when James Harden was here, is the head coach of that squad, and Breanne January is an assistant on that squad. She also coached under Stephanie White with the Connecticut Sun. So quite a few people who, notable ASU ties, not only her playing career and coaching under Turner Thorne, but also coaching with McMillan. And then also just the pro experience of coaching under Stephanie White and all that. She's got some good names that she's attached to for sure.
Yeah. And then with Nikki Blue, she's with the Sparks right now. That team's on the rise.
Under longtime Utah coach Lynn Roberts,
correct.
Too. So she has, Roberts has that familiarity with the ASU program. Yeah. I'm sure she could have an ear in that sense as well, besides the Turner Thorne stuff.
Correct. So I think with the Sparks on the rise, that might be something that intrigues Blue to stick around with them.
And work with Cameron Brink and the likes.
Correct, yeah.
How they're growing that.
And they have a top 5 pick again this coming season. So, I don't know. We'll see. And obviously, my pick is January for this job. What would you like to see ASU do with it?
So, I am pretty in on Molly Miller from GCU. I mentioned this on Twitter the other day that it's been a while now that I've been wanting this just because of the culture that she's built at GCU. Her first year at GCU was the second time that they've ever had at least 18 wins. And since then, it's been 20 wins, 22 wins, 21 wins, 24 wins, 29 wins. She's just building this thing further and further up. And it's the culture setting that I think is most valuable in terms of defense is the foundation of her teams always. And the way they, play on ball defense, I think is really incredible.
Which reminds me of Charlie Turner Thorne.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a really good full court press, but also really good half court, one-on-one type of defense. And all of that is really what builds out their offense. They play a lot in transition. They have the right players launching threes. One of their players, Lisa Durazo-Frescas, is near the tops in the nation this year in terms of three-point shooting. They swept the Arizona schools in the non-conference this year, which I don't know that anyone has ever beaten all three of them, or all three opposing Arizona schools in one season. So I think all that and just the ways that she has this thing rolling with the undefeated conference season, they're expected to kind of run through their tournament play, which starts today. And so I think she makes for a great candidate.
Yeah, and we'll see how this coaching search goes, and we'll give you our thoughts on it as it gets hopefully closer to getting wrapped up. And Jesse's going to want to talk about it a lot because he's really in on this program and wants to see it succeed again. So when Jesse gets back, he'll definitely have some thoughts on that as well. Very quickly, we'll talk about spring football still coming up in just it's crazy. It's just a few weeks.
Less than 2 weeks.
It's incredible that we're already back to football season. So we'll have more about that in the coming weeks and talk about it a little bit as we get closer to that. But it's all about hockey this weekend. It's a best of 3 hockey NCHC
quarterfinals.
NCHC quarterfinals. It's crazy. They're in one of the best conferences in college hockey, and they might not even make the tournament if they lose this. This is a pivotal weekend. If you don't have tickets to go to one of these games this weekend, it's like under $100 to go to the game, under $50 for standing room only. So if you want to go support this ASU team, it's a whiteout for both Friday and Saturday, and if they get to Sunday, I expect it to probably be a whiteout as well. But
they'll probably have to win this series to have a chance at the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
And it's Minnesota Duluth this weekend, and if they do win the series, then they go to Minnesota and they play in the XL Energy Center for the quarterfinals, and then if they make it past that, then the finals as well.
Or semis. Semis.
Yeah. That's my bad because I was reading quarterfinals is this weekend.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yes, so congratulations to hockey for making it to this point, and good luck to them this weekend. We really hope they do make it past this weekend.
This series will be on TV as well, Fox 10 Extra, and it's listed as My 45 on YouTube TV for those that watch through that. So I think, it's the best level of, as we always say, it's the best level of hockey in Arizona, and it's very exciting.
Now the Roadrunners are gone.
And it's just straight up very exciting, too. This team is really good, and they play really hard. They fight people straight up, and I highly recommend watching it or going out to it if you have the chance.
Love hockey, and obviously hockey is having a moment right now, so if you really enjoyed the Four Nations, you'll enjoy this hockey team. So get out and support this ASU hockey team this weekend, and hopefully they do make it to Minnesota next week. That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find us on all forms of social media at AZ Sports Devils. You can find all of Damon's articles on the Arizona Sports app and ArizonaSports.com, presented by Y-Refi.
There you go.
Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.